Everybody, thanks for watching. Just a quick note that Mystery School Volume 4 is now available, as well as the entire series of Saturn and Satan. So, click that shop and support button, and when you get time, definitely check those out. Now, for people who've seen Mystery School Volume 4, we got into the body, the brain, what it's really talking about in Genesis. So, in Genesis, the whole thing is about the brain. I broke it down in the video, and you have to understand what the ancient Egyptians was doing in building. As I said, you want to understand what is the whole mystery about building. What are they hiding in the architecture? What is the fascination with Freemasonry and building? They call themselves the builders, the master builders, and they worship a god that's said to be called, the grand architect. So when you look at everything that's surrounding building, and as I said, Freemasonry is an actual profession that takes, skill. You have to have knowledge of math. You have to have knowledge of geometry. So this is something that the Egyptians obviously had. And as I said before, math was something that we simply discovered, but it has always existed. Now, I talked about how, the brain is mapped out. How we have things in our brain that we can see described in the Garden of Eden story, about the temple in man, about, R.A. Swallow-Delubics. He put out a book called The Temple in Man, where he basically broke down the, hidden esoteric studies of the Egyptian temples and how they mapped it out to be the human body, and, the temple at Karnak and Luxor. And it shows in there, the brain and, the body or what have you, and how all this stuff, wraps up and pertains to us, and why it's important to understand about the brain and the body. So, we talked about the flax cerebri and the tentorium cerebelli, which basically separates the brain, the upper hemisphere from the lower hemisphere. It separates the reptilian brain from the upper brain. And this is what it's telling us symbolically in the Garden of Eden story, how, the serpent came representing the reptilian brain and separated us from the higher brain and gave us, choice. And it's basically choice is what, determines this reality. The choices you make determine what's going to happen in your future. So we went from, basically, a straight and narrow path to a dualistic reality based on choice. And the problem we are facing in this reality is everything that we do is based off choice. But there are choices that are put to us, not choices that we make ourselves. So as I said, you got to decide what school to go to, where to work, what to eat, what to wear, and all these things is predicated upon a system that was designed for us, to make these choices. And none of these choices is really going to help us obtain, our goal in life, our path in life. So we need to understand about this and understand about the brain and the body, and why the ancient Egyptians thought it was so important to really map this out and to understand how it's going to be the body that's going to allow you to activate your chakras and to activate the third eye and to really be spiritual. So the ancients actually, understood the body really well, especially the brain, which is like the most complex, organism or complex thing in the universe, which has been said plenty of times. So they wanted us to really understand how important it is to really develop the body and to really have the body working, because getting the body working first is really going to result in the mind following. So when we talk about Kundalini energy and everything like that, it's not going to happen if the body is not right. So we have so many things that are put in our way to hinder us from having a right body and having, the right kind of diet and having the right kind of lifestyle that's going to allow us to, meditate correctly and to grow, spiritually. But, it begins with the body. And I recently returned back from Egypt, and I've been in Egypt before, but one of the things in going through Egypt and looking at all the hieroglyphics and looking at all of the depictions and going to the Cairo Museum or what have you, is one thing you will not see. And I'm not trying to be funny, but I haven't seen one hieroglyphic of a fat person. I haven't seen one overweight person in ancient Egypt, because they had a different mindset there. It's a different system that was in place. And it's getting you to understand that being so heavy is definitely not healthy. And that's something that we all understand, not trying to be funny. But they really was big on nutrition. And it's one of the things that is not shown a lot when we look at things from ancient Kemet. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to really go there and point out a couple of things. As I put out on Instagram, for those who follow, put up the picture of me next to where the Egyptians are preparing meat. one of the biggest things that's going on right now is a lot of people are falling into the trend of, vegan or vegetarian. There's a lot of arguments and debates going there, a lot of stuff people read online, but it's just common sense. One of the things I want you to understand, one, if you knew what this world would be like with animals not being, hunted and killed, we will be actually overran by insects and, animals. There's a cycle. This cycle is real. Anybody who lives in an area that's infested with deer, and you have bear problems, you have constant issues with animals coming into areas where people live at. And a lot of people are going to say, well, they should have never built homes there. It was their area first, which is true. But it just goes to my point that, well, even it doesn't matter where you live at, no matter where you are, they would come into, that area, and they will overpopulate it, and they will take over eventually if left unchecked. So we were put on this planet for a reason, and you have to understand that these things are here for a reason for us, to have. And, you don't see lions becoming vegans or vegetarians. In fact, there has never been a civilization in the history of the world that was vegan or vegetarian. Everybody was meat eaters. When you go back and you look, you can see it. So what I wanted to point out in Egypt was the carvings that showed them preparing meat, and that, how it was important. It's a knowledge that goes with preparing meat. The problem is too many people overconsume meat. Meat should not be eaten every single day. And a lot of people are eating meat that is not, prepared well. So the thing is, if you overconsume meat, you exceed your capacity that your body has for meat. You should be living, and eating a more plant-based diet. You shouldn't be eating and consuming so much meat, per week. And a lot of people are not exercising. A lot of people are not fasting and cleansing their body, because these are things that are not really taught in society. These are things that are not really taught, that it's really, really helpful to the body. And you got to understand, the system in America is designed that way for a reason. They want people in and out as fast as possible. They want you dead as soon as they feel like you're too old to to work. And if you're not really taking care of your body and taking care of yourself, this is what's going to happen. So you got to really pay attention to what you put in your body. But you have to understand as well that meat is definitely a brain food, and it has nutrients that can only be found within it. Important nutrients, as I said. So, you definitely have to understand that there's a balance. But you should have a diet that's more plant-based. As soon as you leave America, when you travel a lot, you notice two things. One, the condiments taste completely different, like totally different. Ketchup tastes completely different, relish different. Meat as well, and that's the biggest thing you notice, because over here, they don't play with GMOs and chemicals and stuff like that. You eat clean meat, and the people will go crazy here if they find out that it's GMOs or what have you in their meat. One of the things I go through and traveling back and forth and, staying in America for about 3 months and coming back here and, staying for a while and, going to another country and staying or what have you, is the difference, and it's tough when you on the go, and we all go through this. When you're on the go and you're moving and you're doing so much and you get hungry, it's tough for you to turn around and say, I want to eat here at this healthy place, because they're just not everywhere. So sometimes you are forced to consume foods that is not really good for you in order to, to feed that hunger. And this is something that we all go through. So, my weight, fluctuates like crazy. And then sometimes I completely just go off meat, and I just completely stay away from certain foods, for a while. But I always fast and I exercise and everything like that. So, I stay as healthy as possible. And, it doesn't really affect my meditation. It doesn't affect my dream state, which, is apparent, when you dream or when I meditate. But when it starts doing that, then I know, it's the issue. But, this is me, in Sweden, for 3 months. You see, the weight is just off. It doesn't happen. But come to America for 3 months, gain a little bit of weight. And it's something that I noticed. So, it's just something we got to be vigilant of in our diet, and understanding that these people in America are sick. People around the world are sick. These people put stuff in food, and we all know this. We've seen the videos, we see the stuff, what goes on. And again, a lot of people just are in positions where they can't afford to eat healthy and can't afford to take care of themselves properly, and that's by design. These people are trying to get you checked out of here as fast as possible and keep that cycle going, and it's something that you have to break. And this is what the ancient Egyptians really talked about and really hid. It is the biggest secret to the evils that we find in man, to the evils that we are seeing, is what they can do to your body to stop you spiritually from growing and to stop you from being truly healthy. This is how you do the most evilest things to a person, is to infect material things that's going to affect you spiritually. So no, I don't knock vegans or vegetarians or what have you, but you got to understand that it's something that's more new age, something that's more Y2K as far as being vegan and vegetarian. And this agenda to me was put out there to make it so that your brain doesn't have the mental capacity to withstand the attacks that we see on a daily. And this is why so many people fall victim to a lot of mental attacks and are not really sharp mentally, because they're not getting the nutrients they need to really keep the brain sharp. And that's not a personal attack. I know people are going to say, well, I'm smart, I'm this and that. I'm talking about spiritually. I'm talking about when you really need your brain to function the way it's supposed to function, you are not getting those nutrients because they can only be found within meat. And it's not a supplement that you can take to supplement these nutrients for the brain. And this is a fact. So yeah, it's a balance. It's a balance, and everybody has to find that balance. And that balance is really based upon lifestyle. And there are ways of making this stuff work, but you have to understand that you have to be willing to do them. And not just that, you have to be able to do them. And the system that most people live in is not designed for them to do these things. And one of the problems is education. A lot of people are just not educated on what it's going to take to get this perfect balance, because it goes against industry. It goes against these businesses. And it's a lot of meat producing businesses that shouldn't be out here. I mean, anybody producing this, GMO and it's genetically modified meats and foods and what have you, pumping all kinds of shit into chickens. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I talked about bovine growth hormone and everything. I don't even drink milk. I stopped drinking milk years ago. Don't touch the stuff. We're not supposed to drink milk. Milk is from a cow. You're not a cow. You're not a baby cow. It just makes sense when you think about it. It just makes sense. You're not a cow. You shouldn't be drinking cow's milk. And the things that they do to the cows to get them to produce this milk is just sick. A lot of people understand, you're just not, in order to get milk from your mother, she has to be pregnant or had been pregnant. Every single cow that you get milk from or that you see is not pregnant. So how do you get milk from it? They force it. They force pregnation on these cows and force them to produce this milk. And they basically, kick away the baby cows that they had babies after they insert this bull semen within them. And they do that by hand, by the way. You've probably seen the videos when they stick their hand in there and put this bull semen within them to impregnate them, and then they take the babies away. And it's actually, they suffer mentally, emotionally, these cows, believe it or not, from having their young taken away. And they are not there to feed off the milk like they're supposed to. Instead, they kill these cows and give us the milk. But in order to get these cows who are now sad and who are going through all kinds of, emotional things to produce clean milk now, because, you don't want your mother breastfeeding you or breastfeeding your child when she's in a sickened state. So they have to do things to this cow to force it to produce the kind of milk that they want. And then they add stuff to it after that. So it's gross. It's just stay away from it when you have, so many different alternatives like, almond milk or what have you to drink. And in some cases, almond milk, they mess up with that. So it's tough to find the milk to really drink, because everything, like I said, these people are sick. Everything that they're doing is geared towards affecting you spiritually, affecting your body, and getting you checked out of here fast. So as I said, the ancient Egyptians wanted to reflect the celestial body. So we see a lot of the monuments that they built reflect the bodies in the sky, the constellations. So they built monuments that also reflect us, because they felt like we came from the sky as well. We came from the constellation. So again, when I showed the pyramids representing the brain, the capstone, it's not a coincidence that the pyramid is the pyramid shape. But when you also look at the capstone on the obelisk or a Tekken, you see it's the same pyramid shape. And they also have a capstone on top of those. So they was trying to show you the body and show you the brain, which the temples would be the body. Just like in the Bible, it says the body is the temple. And you have so many Bible verses referring to the body as being the temple. The Egyptians were showing you that as well. So when you look at the pyramid and align it with the brain and the hemispheres of the brain, It's basically giving you not only the Garden of Eden story, but the story of Osiris and a message. So you see where it aligns with Sirius and Orion, where the Greeks got the name Osiris. They put Orion and Sirius together, and you can see where the Queen's Chamber is, which aligns with the constellation Draco, which is why Eve is the one who dealt with the serpent, and why Satan is also called the serpent and the dragon, because that is the serpent dragon, Draco. So the Garden of Eden story, as I pointed out in the video, is dealing with the brain, and so much of the Bible is dealing with the brain and the body when you look at it esoterically. Look around the temples in Egypt, when you go to Karnak, when you go to so many different places down in Abu Simbel as well with Ramses II, you see it's all laid out in a form, in a way to show you the body and the importance of it. In order for you to build the mind, you have to build the body first, and the Egyptians understood that. So again, what is the best thing to attack if you want to impede that process? The body, but also the mind as well. So the mind goes, the body goes. If you tame the mind, you can attack the body. And it's a mindset. I always talk about that. Mindsets, things that we have been conditioned to do. Eating is one. The things that we see. It's a wonder. The main consumed food that we see across America, burgers and fries, starches and things of that nature, things that we really shouldn't put in our body on a regular basis. It's just something you got to really start thinking about and understanding. One, we see the sick things that this government is responsible for and these people do. We can't just sit around and think that, they're going to just do the right thing as it pertains to food, especially if it's going to, decrease their profits. So we got to look at that, and you got to start really researching and studying these people that make these foods and what they're doing to our foods. So many people in the Black community is dependent on, welfare and food stamps, the white community as well. And a lot of people are getting a limited amount of money to buy food. So they have to buy, what tastes good and what's the cheapest as possible, to sustain themselves and, to maintain. And, it's just crazy. And it's a system that's really attacking you spiritually and mentally and physically. And, it's something that you got to be really vigilant about. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to put out the Mystery School 4 video, to put that piece out. So many questions. A lot of you guys are seriously smart, as I always say. And a lot of people wanted to understand what's up with the Freemasons. What is up with building? What is that really about? How do they hide the math and science and, everything within the building, of these structures? So as I said before, you got to look at the beginning. And in the beginning, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. As soon as you have one object, you create math. And it's what they see in the universe. They wanted to reflect on Earth, and they say as above, so below. And he did that. We're building these monuments to reflect the celestial bodies as well as, our earthly bodies, to say that they are one and the same. The energy you have is traveling out there. The body, the flesh that you have, this body we can see out there within, these physical things. And, we're all made up of atoms. And that's the whole importance, as I said before, of the Adam and Eve part. And I talked about that. And it's just so much out there that we can find in the ancient Egyptian civilization that's pertaining to us, and this is why they never focused on trying to move forward and to excel and grow, because there's really nothing more to it but to understand the body and the mind and true spirituality. There was a concern with building a super wealthy economy. Things were just the way they was because they was living a spiritual life. And again, if you get a people that come and don't understand true spirituality and only materialistic things, this is what's going to happen. They're going to take over because they want to take the materialism and not the spiritualism, or they want to try to make some kind of, perversion of the two to give us the reality that we see today. So it's full of fake spirituality and real materialism, and more people are following the materialism in truth than the real spirituality. Now, I want to say it took me over 10 years to build myself spiritually to the way I thought I should be at that point in time and my knowledge. So, I wanted to see changes in my dreams. I wanted to see changes in my energy. I wanted to see changes in meditation. And it seriously took, by about 10 years to actually really start seeing these things. You notice little subtle things as you go along, as far as, concentration, hand-eye coordination and stuff like that. You notice the change in dream. You go from, remembering dreams and having these dreams to having no dreams at all, was seen for a while, to, being able to actually become conscious and, experience different things in dreams and to control and manipulate within dreams, and it grows from there. So many different levels that you get to, but if you're not putting in the constant work, and as I said, Meditation Volume 2 will be out soon. If you're not putting in that constant work and building, your consciousness and trying to affect the dream state. I mean, so many different things that you can do, from making mental notes and from making your own music. For when you go to sleep. As I said before, that's something that I did, from, just you talking about what you want to achieve and you trying to speak to yourself within a dream state. When you are asleep, you can hear. We all know that what you hear will affect the dream. Understand that. So while you are not understanding it or really hearing it consciously, of course, your subconscious is at work and it's picking up on it, and your subconscious is what projects the dream world, and it will project out what you are hearing. We all have been through it. I've been asleep before and watching Seinfeld and start dreaming about being in Seinfeld. So it's proof positive. We've seen it all the time, how, music and what we hear during our sleep can affect our dreams. So why not listen to something while you're asleep that's going to benefit your reality, that's going to actually help you out? A long time ago, we talk about 1990s, really. They had these self-help tapes, and it was one of the biggest things that I seen that was like, well, wait a minute, this stuff works. And they had these self-help tapes where somebody's speaking to you. You listen to them while you sleep. Somebody's speaking to you while you sleep and telling you things like trying to teach you a language, or talking to you about, losing weight or what have you, things like that. And they worked. It was a big study done, and these things actually worked. And all of a sudden, disappeared. They got bought up, the companies, and then nothing else got put out. And that was a hint right there to a lot of people to understand the power of listening to audio during sleep. If you're listening to Trey songs, you're listening to hip hop and all this stuff when you go to bed, it's going to reflect your reality. It's going to reflect your dream, but your reality as well. And this is what a lot of people do. And you got to understand, what you listening to and what you putting into your consciousness is going to reflect your reality. And this is one of the things that, I point out a lot in so many videos. So for those of you who actually follow and listen and watch all the videos, you know what I'm talking about, what we get into. But, a lot of people have absolutely no clue. They think it's spooky and that this stuff is just, weird fraud shit. But when you understand and when you practice and when you know and when you really participate in certain things, you see the results, and they are real results that really happen. And I don't really talk about my success, but I hint a little bit here and there. But I talk about my life before success and the stuff I went through growing up and everything, and how my life has completely changed since becoming conscious, since 2001, and starting to understand this information and starting to, change. And my life's changed. Everything has been reflected in a positive way. As I said before, I was way successful before YouTube. Before I started putting out these DVDs and videos and everything, I already had success. My thing was to show people, one, that you can obtain success by understanding history, understanding knowledge and who you are, and implementing these things within your life, and understanding, one, the system that you live in is designed for you to fail. We all know this. It's designed for you to fail, for you to die, for you to really die mentally, spiritually, physically. And if you understand that and have the understanding that, some sky daddy, some Jesus Christ or what have you is not coming to save you or change your life, that you have to do it yourself, then you act accordingly and you do things that it's going to make real change and really help you grow, and have a better life. So as I said in part 4, the brain has a dual nature. You have the left and you have the right side. So what the flex cerebri and the tentorium cerebelli did was actually create this separation of the upper and lower brain, separating the reptilian. The reptilian brain consists of the brainstem. It consists of pons. It consists of the cerebellum. The cerebellum is called the small brain. So when you understand this, and you understand this separation, as I talked about, that the flex cerebri is a sickle shape. And we see the sickle held by the god of Saturn, which would be Kronos, which would be Satan. Saturn is Satan. So in the Garden of Eden story, it's giving you this message right here. The separation happened and we fell to a materialistic plane, which is basically the lower brain. And 95% of the decisions that we make decided by the lower brain, the reptilian brain. 95% of your decisions is decided by a materialistic lower brain, which is why they say Satan is the god of this world. Lower brain, this is a materialistic malakuf level. Lower brain, this is what we fell to. This is what we're dealing with, and we see it projected in our reality. Materialism everywhere you turn. So if you fall victim to it, which everybody has, this is what you will be dealing only in materialistic things. And that's, I gotta pay bills, I gotta put food on the table, of course. I want this car, I want this, I want that, I want what I see. I want what the system is projecting out to me as something that I should have. It's telling you what you should want and what you should have, and we're going out and getting it. So it's affecting us on a mental level. You have to change your mentality and understand what this stuff is in order for you to grow spiritually, because if you don't, you're going to stay at that level. And this is basically all throughout the Bible when we start breaking it down. It's deep, it's crazy. As I said, we get into a whole series from Genesis to Revelation on the Bible, going through every single book and breaking it down. And I'm going to begin that soon. Actually I already started it, but I'm going to start putting it out soon. But it's deep. And when you look at this stuff and you go back to, ancient Sumer or, Kemet, and, even in ancient China, Japan, or what have you, they talking about the same stuff, and as I said in the video, you have, with the whole complex in Giza, with the alignment of the stars in Orion's belt, the whole now alignment with the Milky Way, and, the Sphinx facing the sun as it's set in the east or what have you, and the constellation of Leo. You have these same alignments, in different countries. You have them in China. I showed you down in Mexico. You had these alignments during the spring equinox. And it's so many different cultures talking about the same thing, talking about the same spiritual things that we find in the ancient world, which is why they try to hide it from us. But it's dealing with the body, it's dealing with the brain, it's dealing with the understanding of how this stuff works and how it's going to help you grow spiritually. Talked about before about the living Horus. The living Horus is what they call all the pharaohs that preceded Horus, which would be, according to Egyptian mythology, the first ruling pharaoh. So they all call themselves the living Horus, and you find when they die themselves calling themselves the Osiris, because you have Horus, which is basically talking about the sun, the pineal gland, and then you have that dealing with life, and you have Osiris dealing with the afterlife, and this is who they said you would join in the afterlife. Talked about this in the Egyptian Book of the Dead DVD, and how you go through all that and what that stuff is really speaking to. So again, it all goes back to the body, to the brain, to the mind, to meditation, concentration, understanding your surroundings and your atmosphere and what you put in your body and what the system is really about, because it's a system and it has been created for us to have to deal with, to have to choose. And that's what life really is about, choice. Your choices is going to determine your reality. So when I say that your consciousness is going to shape your reality, it's your choices that you make. So when people get into quantum physics and alternate universes or what have you, we're talking about choices here. And that's something we're going to get into more down the line. Choices. Because if you chose this way, your life went one way. If you chose the other way, it went a different way. Imagine if it's separate, universes where the choices you made was, different. And that's something to really think about, and kind of makes sense when you start breaking it down on a quantum level. So this is why they get into all that stuff. We're talking about shaping reality and shaping, the way that your reality is and the way that your day-to-day is, the way that your life is. And if you're on a system where, you got to be to work, you got to do this, you got to do that, and it's not your time, it's somebody else's time that you constantly focused on, which is why, as I said before, Kronos, Satan deals with time, the god of time, because it's time that you're a slave to. You got to be to work at a certain time. So your day has to revolve around that time. And that is a construct. That is not you. that it's not something you want to do. It's taking away, from your true purpose. So everything is about choice. And you look at the choices that you made in life, you can see why you are at, where you are at. And, some people have, a reality that has been unfairly projected onto them. And now it's about the choices you make post that reality. So, even though you might be in a position that was forced on you by somebody else, now you have to make the correct choices to get out of those situations. You can't just dwell on that situation and say, them, their fault, when the opportunity is in front of you to move forward and to excel. And that's not pertaining to the system that we are in and stuck in, as Black people, but as your own personal, your own personal journey, your own personal way that you can get out of your situation. There exist ways, and there's things that you can do to get up out of there as one individual. And that's the way we have to approach it. And if we all approached it that way, as individuals, and said, one, I need to do this, I need to make these changes, but at the same time understanding that we are a collective and we have to do things to, contribute to the collective, because if we do that, it'll help us grow individually as well. So there's a lot of ways, a lot of things that we can do as individuals to help our situation, but at the same time, we have to understand as a collective, we have to do even more things to just make the situation better. Because if you do that, as you move ahead and get to certain points, that work you put in right there to help the collective, when you get to certain points, you'll reap the benefits of that. And this is what we got to do in the Black community. We got to start really thinking differently and choosing differently and making different choices and understanding what's really important versus what has been given to us to seem important. And that's the bottom line. And, the body is, it's the temple. It's one of the most major things that, it's you. It's what you have to deal with. It's what your energy has, the vehicle it has to use to develop itself. And if you don't, do the right things with it, if you don't develop your mind, i.e. putting the right nutrients in your brain that you need to grow, and what's going to happen is you're going to fall deeper into this lower brain and deeper into the slave mentality, which is one of the reasons why they pushing vegan so hard and pushing vegetarian so hard as this thing. And, either way, you're trapped. And it's the problem with America. Either way, you're trapped, because if you go vegan, you're not getting the brain nutrients that you should get. But if you keep eating this meat, it's not prepared correctly. So if you don't own a farm or are butchering cattle yourself, you don't know if you're getting clean meat or not. You don't know. So you can only hope. So, this is something we got to be vigilant of and watch out for. So, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch. And those of you who have supported and ordered the DVD and purchased or downloaded or what have you, thanks for the support. Definitely follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at The Real Merkabah. See you guys next video.